Hi everyone, this is Markku and welcome to the Growth Mindset Builder channel. A couple of days ago, I gave a presentation at the Helsinki XR Center. The event was called the Monthly AI Meet, and I had a presentation there for about an hour talking about me, myself, and AI as a learning journey, as a transformation journey. And I got so much feedback from the participants to share it because I mostly in Finland talk in Finnish about my AI experiences, even though I work in a global context. So this is in English for you, and hopefully you'll like it. A bit of background about me. So if you don't understand the context that I'm coming from, even though I've worked in business most of my life, my background is very strongly in education, and I truly get a lot of also purpose from that, working with education, transformation, etc. in schools and in learning culture, life skills, etc., whatever the aspect. So, but that's the truth. My background is in teacher education, but then in the early 2000s, I got really excited about online learning, founded a company, which actually already still exists, but I did that for 16 years, working mostly with global clients on online training, delivery, learning solutions, etc. Then I wanted to kind of like get back to business for me in education, and I found myself in Ottawa Learning, which was the second largest educational publisher. I was first the head of digital, but then because I'm a client person, I love to be with customers. I spent there 7 years working as a business director, and then left in 23 as the head of accounts. And AI had very much to do with that. So basically, 57 years old, and one thing that I've learned in life, that everything always changes, and I've noticed that digitalization has a big impact on the change. The transformation is kind of like AI is calling us to transform. And my message to you is that when you think of kind of like all of the transformations, we're right now in a very, very unsteady global environment. We have a lot of big transformations ongoing at the same time, and then we have AI. And one of the only ways to keep ourselves intact is to continuously adapt and learn and find new ways of thinking, and also collaborate with each other. And one thing that right now I've noticed, that when we talk about AI, I see there's kind of like multiple kinds of people looking at AI from different perspectives. Well, I would say about half of them are quite panicking about what does this mean for me, what happens to my work, what happens to the world in general. But then there's also people who have a very clear understanding on that AI is an enabler. If you have a clear purpose, if you find meaning in things that you do, if you have dreams, capability to also pursue those dreams, it's a divider. And my message is that everyone should have a personal relationship with technology in general, but also especially with AI. And that's why I wanted to share my story. And I'm kind of like in an unfair position, because we mostly talk about generative AI as AI. We know that it's much more, but in 23, when I had a six-month non-compete when I left the company, previous employer, I had 6 months, and even though I was working, my calendar was quite empty. And what I wanted to do was basically, I knew that ChatGPT, etc., AIs were coming to normal humans as tools. So I decided that I want to be the best prompter in the world. So I basically spent 3 or 4 hours a day working on my AI skills, also looking into the technology for 6 months, 3 or 4 hours a day. But then I also, of course, did a lot of workout and exercise and stuff like that. I realized quite quickly that prompting is not the kind of like, it's okay, it's important, you have to understand how to formulate your wishes, but it's much more. And then I think that after about 10 months of doing heavy stuff on that, I went deeper and I found new technologies, Fabric. I converted everything that I do into Obsidian, into Markdown. I started to play around with APIs, combining different tools to my knowledge bases. And then I realized that actually this is super productive. And I would say that I went to like 20x, 30x, 50x, whatever I do quite quickly, which means that I can do things more productively. But the main message is not productivity for me. It was actually that I realized that quite quickly that I have to transform the way I work. I've always loved time blocking. For example, in my calendar looks like a design model of how to organize your time. I love all of the self-help books that you can find. Most likely I've read it, but I realized that actually, especially in 2025 earliest, that I really need to start to transform the way I work. Also, I need to develop certain skills more, critical thinking, systemic thinking. I need to always, when I'm working with AI, have the big picture in mind. And this was kind of like a really big, right now, if you look at my the way I work here in my room, I have multiple Mac Minis running agents for me. I do most of the work I do is by speaking with AI agents. I do type, but it's still like more like giving Claude some assignments, etc., opening up new agent runs or being the human in the loop, looking at the content. But everything has transformed a lot. And this is like a slide where I always explain that even though I have my digital twin, even though I have my voice clone, even though I use a lot of avatar videos, even though my customers communicate with my AIs, I'm still a human in the loop, and that's why the purpose comes into mind. This is one of my, I would say, proudest slides in my life. I'm maybe in Dubai working on educational transformation work, or I'm in Sharjah talking about life skills and the importance of future skills for students. Being in Kenya, presenting a literacy game in a literacy solution in AI for Education Summit, for example, in Africa. So this is kind of like where I'm at the happiest. That's because I have a clear purpose. I want to transform education from my personal perspective as much as possible, and I've been able to do that. Lots of stories, not going to go into that. But the main point is that it's really important that when we think of AI, it's not just about technology, it's not just about the skills, it's about your mindset, your skill sets, the tools you use. But at the end of the day, from an individual's perspective, it's the culture you live in, the work culture, your settings, the people you collaborate with. And I think that we have to look at it from a very high-end perspective. And that's why, for example, mindsets are really critical. My email ends with the growthmindsetbuilder.com. I'm a true believer in growth mindset, but there's a lot more mindsets. And especially when we think of AI, I would say that the main message that if I would be you, a white-collar worker, most likely studying, or you have something that you know you're going to be doing a lot of continuous learning all of your life, you also have to keep in mind that AI is a huge transformation driver, and especially for the humans, our minds are also being challenged by technology. And there's a lot of, no matter what you read, it will be a big transformation. And these are facts. And it will be coming for you in a positive way as an enabler, but also kind of like everyone has to figure out, who am I? What's my new role in this? How will I flourish and be happy and continue to live and make meaning and value to everyone else? And this is where we have to kind of like, I will quickly kind of like go through a couple of thoughts, but my main message is that you have to make the selection as a human in your mind on what is your personal relationship to AI. I've taken the kind of like the human AI collaboration model. I want to take it to the max. So basically, that's why I have everything in all of my skills have been converted into agents and Claude skills and automated processes. So the heavy lifting that I do is right now I would say, in the areas where I'm quite competent. Let's say, for example, training program design or change program design or leadership models development, etc. I've automated a lot of those, I would say, processes. But I continuously know that the more I transfer my knowledge to AIs, the more I continuously learn as a human. So that's why human AI collaboration is actually very important. And it's a mindset. It's not just about how do you know how to do these things. It's about how you think, how you decide that, okay, in the future I will have digital colleagues. In the future, I have to find a position where my humanity will be the kind of like the key driver. So my message to you is that your mindset decides what skills you're ready to learn, but also how you will be transforming and adapting to this change. And it's partially, to a very wide extent, because of the technology. AI has the second word, intelligence. We've typically thought that humans are the intelligence ones. Now we have technology that is also intelligence, and I believe that that's why sharing is caring. If you want to keep all of your knowledge just to yourself and kind of like stick to your expert profile, you might be in for a surprise, because LLMs, new AIs, people using AI in the right way will be able to do a lot more than you think. And whether it's for good or bad, but it's a fact that it has a huge impact. And that's why I would encourage everyone to share their thoughts. And this is just a slide I want to share. If I would go, for example, I was one of the IBO's global advisors when the AI principles were designed this spring for IBO. It's a huge, one of the leading global school organizations, over 6,000 schools and millions of students. If I would come to a meeting and say, okay, who is Markku? I would, of course, present myself as a human. Markku, I am from Lahti, Finland. These are kind of like my, I would say, core skills and mindset that I bring to the table, but these are also the tools that I always have with my AIs at hand. And I think that this is a new thinking. I don't come in with a CV or, hey, this is what I've been doing the last years. I would say, who am I? And then explain in a very humanly way, but then I would also say, what capabilities, what skills do I have combined with AIs? And I think that will be the new normal. And that's why we have to have a human and AI philosophy also as personal. You have to remember that we are accountable for everything that I'm accountable for everything that my agents do. I'm accountable to use it in an ethical and responsible way, but also I believe that humans should be the ones who are controlling and sometimes answer or ask the question, are we really in control with social media, etc.? I think that we can do better. So that's why it's important that we have a personal relationship with AI. A couple of thoughts about the skills. And when I talk about skills, I really mean skills. And this is something where there's a lot of kind of like, I call them the handshakers. There's, you go to LinkedIn, you got, you're going to lose jobs, etc. And sure, things always transform and change always it's good or bad. It always happens. And of course, jobs will be transformed. But one thing that I want everyone to be really, I would say, aware of is that when we think of traditionally human intelligence, experience-based judgments, empathy, emotional awareness, being ethical decision makers, building trust with other humans, AI also has a lot of good capabilities, and typically the knowledge work that we've been seeing as high value will have a lower value in the future. And this is where the skills come in. So if I would compare me and my agents, where is Markku good at? I'm good in building trust, for example. But my agents are much better in, for example, process automation or predictive analysis with huge data sets, etc. So this is important to understand, that we have to have an understanding how do we as humans will still flourish and keep growing in the time of AI. And this booklet is something I think that everyone should read, the Future of Jobs report. It's an old report, but the main message, if you look at the core skills, 2030, it's not that far away, but if you look at the skills that are critical on a global perspective in the workforce: adaptability, resilience, creativity, curiosity, technology literacy, AI literacy, systemic thinking, metacognition, empathy, dreaming, emotional skills. And then if you look at some of the skills that are kind of like outdated due to technology, due to AI, it's something you should be thinking about. And we have a huge shift in skills focus. And if you're an educator at this point, you really need to also, as a community, as an educator community, to start thinking, how will this transform our pedagogical practices? Are we teaching the right skills? Are we supporting the right kind of learning? And I think that we are in for a quite rocky ride. 21st century skills are old school already. They were over 20 years ago designed, information processing, etc. Now we need to find what are the future-proof AI native skills that enable everyone to perform. And this is important because no matter how old you are, what you're doing right now, it will have an impact on your environment and your personal work. So one suggestion to every one of you is to kind of like analyze your personal skills, or have a team meeting and start to think, do we have the right skills right now? Should we maybe start to develop, for example, our mindsets and, for example, skills on systemic thinking? They're not something that that they're not taught in universities or higher education or in schools or they're skills that you can develop as a human, but it takes an awareness to practice, to continuous development, to master them. And that's why I think that everyone should really take the skills part. And my favorite slide in the presentation is always when I talk about Martin Neumeyer. He wrote this book on meta skills, on how automation, robots, and AI will transform. He was talking this in 2012. And he said, dreaming, feeling, seeing, making, learning, those are the skills of the future. How cool is that? Maybe they are. They are. And then when it comes to tools, I'm just going to skip this briefly, but I think that my main message in this is I'm not going to be talking about different AI models or AI tools or automations or agents. There's tons of talk about that. But remember that once you start to take AI into meaningful use, like Marshall McLuhan said back in the 60s, we shape our tools and thereafter our tools shape us. It will be a transformation journey. And this is me and my youngest son, Joel. I was just in coaching and bringing in a model on life skills development in Sharjah a long time ago. But the main message that once I brought in my digital twins to the process, trained my twins on the topics that we were covering, I realized that my work life has changed forever. And the reality is that I work a lot, but I'm really keen on also sleeping 8 hours of every night. I want to exercise. I want to have a happy, meaningful life, just a normal life anyone would be having. But I realized that I have such a huge dream in my head, what I want to achieve, like to have more impact in life. And I realized that without AIs, I can't do it. So basically, that's why I've started to scale my expertise. And one of the enablers is that I do everything that I work with AIs, I always use only Markdown as the source. So I basically created my second brain in a tool called Obsidian. And every time I collaborate with an AI or run an agentic flow, it will use my content, my metadata as the background. And that's why I've been able to scale myself also quite efficiently. I have a voice clone, I have an avatar, but they're not the deal. The point is that what can I do as a human that I couldn't do without my agents or my representations of me, the digital versions. And that's the point. I have a personal relationship with technology. I've always been the last in line, kind of like, especially in the learning context. But once I started using technology, it made me a better, hopefully also a better human, but also more capable. And that's why it's important that we need to have the right tools in use. I showed this example on, for example, I've done and led teams designing global learning solutions for companies like Nokia, Stora Enso, etc. Huge companies, hundreds of thousands of end users going through the same training materials in local languages. And typically 20 years ago, when we created an e-learning content, it was basically a huge team of people working on it, a lot of weight on the production costs, videos, etc. And this is, for example, I just shared this as an example on how I create. For example, I'm going to doing AI literacy 1 week training in China this year, hopefully a couple of weeks, and this is my, for example, design process. So what I create first is a blueprint. So basically I start gathering my thoughts on the contents. Of course, I have a lot of core content already in place, but my way of working right now is that I first create a blueprint, which basically is the design document that then creates with AI agents the workbooks, my slides, presentations, video scripts, etc. And it's typically based on, in the beginning, the first phase, it's about spoken feedback. So what I do is, when I create a blueprint, I go for a long walk. I record my thoughts. Okay, on day one, we're going to be doing this, etc. And then I put agents to work. And basically, the first deliverable is about 20, 30 pages of structured content, which is basically an input to my learning engine. So what happens is, once I have this ready, I give it to Claude and other agents to basically build with different skills the content that I will be doing. And because I have spoken the manuscript, it's my voice, my activities, my pedagogical thinking, the content is actually quite good quality. And this is, when we talk about productivity, this mostly is done when I'm sleeping. So basically I have agents that start the nightly runs, they automate my content production, and the costs are unbelievably, I would say the human costs are really high value, because I can sleep while my agents are working, but the prices are doable. And if you know how to select the right models to the right kind of tasks, you don't need, for an avatar video script based on a spoken transcript, you don't need to use the best language model. So basically, I always negotiate the prices with my agents. And this is kind of like mind-blowing. I was just, I don't know if you use Lovable. It's a vibe coding app, one of the best in the world. I love it. I do a lot of my training content and customer solutions with Lovable. But basically, what you're seeing right now in the video is I've given Claude access through Chrome to my Lovable. And basically, what Chrome is doing is vibing based on my input, a training site, pulling it from my Obsidian vault, and basically I don't have to do anything. Couple of clicks, but I was watching this like TV, and basically I had an AI do my stuff. How cool is that? I don't know. I'm a bit old, but still hanging in there. So this is something that I really enjoy. Having the right tools, but the main message is that you need to have your personal AI stack, and I would say the bottom layer, the most important part for me is, of course, my life experiences, my values, my vision, my purpose, my human interface, my flesh. But then you need to have a knowledge base, you need to have workhorses, you need to have visual tools, you need to have your digital representations. And this is how I built my personal AI stack. And this is quite cool. This is me working with a client. We're sharing skills. This is unbelievable. We're sitting in a cafeteria, multiple devices, and I'm delivering him some skills that I've designed based on our collaboration, Claude skills, and then he's ready to deploy them with his colleagues. Kind of like, so if you have a good stack, you can give it to someone else. And this is why sharing is really important. So we can do things in unbelievable ways. So think of what are the tools that you want to use, what are the mindsets that are driving it, what skills do you need to develop, and then it comes to the culture. And this is, I would say, the most important part, because humans only succeed if we work together. And when I think of culture, it's also about leadership and the experience. I was just watching a presentation by Marcus Buckingham on experience intelligence, which is, it's one of the best books that just came out. And I think that if we think of AI as a big transformation force, bigger than fire, bigger than electricity, and it will automate everything, but I think that leadership, cultural leadership, shared leadership will be a huge impact. And I think that this is where a lot of organizations are struggling. There's a lot of studies that AI implementation typically fails, and it's not because of the technology. Technology has its flaws. It's not ready yet. It's just, we're just scratching the surface, but it's mostly the cultural layer. And this is where we have to really put our leaders, whether you're an individual leading your own work, but if you're a team leader or an organizational leader or the CEO, you really need to have a cultural development process along. So we need to start boldly about also being honest to each other. What matters to me, what excites me, what doesn't. When we talk about work flow transformation, if you don't ask the people if you don't collaborate with people on how they want to work, you're doing a huge mistake. We need to be in a really safe space. So psychological safety and AI, they work together. So we have to be really ready to fail. We need to be also really curious. So how do you build a culture that is safe and curious? It's doable, but you need to change the way you lead. So there's a lot of things that we need to consider, and I think that so this is kind of like something that I think we should all be talking about, instead of like, what language model are you using? The question should be, how are we transforming our culture to be more AI friendly, AI native? But how are we also collaborating with our colleagues, etc.? The final thing, it's not a scary thing, but I think that the more you know, the better decisions you can make. And I think that there's a lot of talk on how AI will transform different areas of work. Some of them are more vulnerable than others. And this is a tool I can share. If you send me a message, I can send you a Claude skill that basically can create AI vulnerability analysis of your organization. So basically it gives an AI exposure radar view and also some development paths and ideas for you. And I think that this was quite a cool, when I go and visit, for example, new clients, I always run this kind of analysis of the organization with all of the data that I have on them before I go to the meeting. And they said, hey, by the way, would you like to see your AI vulnerability report? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses, etc.? And you should see their faces when I say that, okay, you guys are actually quite... You need to start transforming because you have a lot of occupations that most likely could be agentified. But on the other hand, you have a lot of opportunities if you really put everyone and their mindsets to the right work and transform your culture. So this is a tool I'm willing to share. If you send me a message, I'll send it to you. You need to have a Claude, but I'll send you an explanation video on how to use it, because sharing is caring. But this is something that, as an example, when you talk about the culture, we need to also have the facts. We need to have data to back it up. And this is one way to look at it in brief. But to you, my final words, really identify your mindset and put a lot of work into it. What is your personal kind of like relationship, first of all, with AI? What would you be doing if you would have all of the AI capabilities in the world? What would be the big North Star you would be going towards? What would be your dream? And I think that once you have an identified kind of like what's keeping you in place, what's your kind of like opportunity view, I think that it's much easier to then go focusing on your skills, because developing your skills takes a lot of time. Tools are easy to take into use, but to systematically put them into use, not so easy. So start easy, and please get in, connect with me, check out my website, growthmindsetbuilder.com. Send me an email, send me a WhatsApp, you'll find it somewhere, etc. And cool, nice talking to you, and have a brief discussion with yourself, and let's talk more later.